persons, objects and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Every day, I see patients who come to me suffering from infectious diseases caused by germs, from typhoid to diarrhea, flu, cough. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily when we use the toilet, from our door handles, from other surfaces. We transfer to others without realizing. That is why we recommend Dettol Antiseptic Liquid. Protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol Sure.
Sedap Supreme Noodles, capturing the tasty goodness. It's the Sedap Supreme Chicken Essence that gives it the truly delicious chicken taste. With real chicken essence. Be Supreme, Nigeria.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. Joining us now to discuss the milestones in the Nigerian Maritime Administration Agency is the Director General of NIMASA, Dr. Dakuku Peterside. Good morning and thanks for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning and good morning Nigerians.
All right, very briefly, for the benefit of some of our viewers, sometimes there is a conflation of what your agency is and what it does versus other agencies that are also involved in the maritime subsector. There is Shippers Council, there is NIMASA, there is the Nigerian Ports Authority, there is the Navy. What are you all under the same, who are you?
Thank you very much. I acknowledge the fact that indeed there is that confusion. Many persons find it difficult to delineate the different mandates of the different actors or agencies. I'll start with the team I belong to. As NIMASA has two key roles or mandates. The first is to regulate shipping in our country. And so the first of our mandates is regulatory. So for every vessel coming into the country, it is our duty to ensure that they comply with the minimal standards set by us and by international laws to which we are party to, or international conventions or protocols. And for vessels that emanate from Nigeria, vessels flag Nigeria, it is our responsibility to ensure that they meet standards that make them acceptable in any other part of the world. Again, it is our responsibility under that regulatory function to ensure that shipping do not impact adversely on the environment. And so that speaks to marine pollution control. And again, to ensure that vessels are manned by persons who are appropriately trained to do that. And so that speaks to manning, as well as security of vessels. Vessels, commercial vessels or trading vessels or merchant vessels can come into our maritime domain, do her trading, go back to wherever it's coming from, or leave our space, go to other territories, do their trading, and come back safely. That provision of that security is also part of our mandate. So that speaks to the first of the two broad mandates we have. The first, I've spoken extensively, is regulatory. The second is promotional. To get Nigerians to participate in shipping as owners of vessels, as those who man vessels, and in other ancillary services in the industry, in the broader blue economy, whether as those who own shipyards, those who own ship repair yards, and all of that. We also regulate under the first one. I've said two broad mandates. One is regulatory, the other one is promotional. Now, by the Shippers Council, our sister agency, her function is to protect the interest of shippers, those who ship, and the shipping firms, ensuring that there's a balance and that no one takes advantage of the other. They've been given an additional role as economic regulators of shipping industry or port, the port. So basically, they deal with those who ship, those who do the actual shipping. If you now go ship in product, being shipping product, they ensure that nobody cheats you and you don't cheat the other person, and that it strikes economic balance. So their role is economic regulator of the port and the shipping business, the economic aspect. You know, what is the cost of freight and all of that. Of course, you know that Nigerian Port Authority manages the ports. And I'll do an analogy after this. Port development, port management, port maintenance, then, of course, the maintenance of the channels to the ports and all of that. Now, the Navy do not have much role to play in merchant shipping. But because of our special situation, in the United Kingdom, those who play the function of the Navy is called the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency of the United Kingdom. In the United States, we have the Coast Guard of the United States. But we don't have a Coast Guard here. So we're not armed. We're expected to provide security or guarantee security for merchant vessels, but we're not armed. So the Navy now is breaching that gap. We have an alliance with them called the Maritime Guard Command, where they ensure, because they're the only ones authorized by our laws to be arm-bearing, the protection of the shipping routes to ensure that these ships come in, trade safely, and go back safely. I think that gives you a bit of understanding. Now, let me just do an analogy to make you appreciate it better. It's like you having what they call a terminus of a vehicle, of a motor, what they call a motor park. Let me use the layman's language, a terminus of a bus. Now, MPA is in charge of that terminus. That's the area of mandate, the development.
Like Japi Motor Park.
Yes, like Japi Motor Park. Now, the moment you leave that park and you're transiting from the park to the next destination, NIMASA's role is to ensure that you're safe along that course till you get to the next destination. NIMASA's role too is like the federal.
That is like road safety.
Yes, it's also like road safety to ensure that your vehicle is worthy to be on the road. The same way in the sea, your vessel is worthy, is seaworthy. You understand that? Now there's another additional role. So you see that I don't know if that analogy brings out clearly the different roles. Now the Shippers Council is to ensure that the fare you're charged, it's not the responsibility of the motor park or the terminal to ensure that the fares are moderate and are competitive. It's not their responsibility, and that you're not taking advantage of. You know, they don't regulate fares. So the Shippers Council fills in that gap of regulating fares, ensuring that the passenger pays an appropriate fare, and that the man who owns the vessel also gets his own due benefit. So everybody benefits and at the same time is economically competitive. I don't know if that analogy brings out clearly the different roles.
I think it does.
It does, and I believe the layman outside listening now has a better understanding
of the different roles.
Yes.
The only one we didn't ask is NIWA, that is Inland Waterways Authority. I don't know that's...
Yeah, you know, Nigeria is blessed to have one of the longest inland waterways in the continent of Africa. The Gulf of Guinea and the Niger Delta. The Niger Delta specifically is one of the largest tributaries of rivers, both River Niger and River Benue. Around the continent of Africa, there is no other delta that is bigger than ours in the country or in the continent of Africa. We have minimum of 3,000 kilometers of inland waterways. Now, this could serve for the purposes of transportation, moving around. So we reduce pressure on our roads, and even as we're developing the rail system. Now, NIWA's responsibility is to ensure that the inland waters are properly developed. These inland waters, these 3,000 kilometers of tributaries, are properly developed. The channels are opened up, and that we maintain safety standards in inland waters, moving from one location to the other, develop the right infrastructure, regulate for safety and security. So their function is within the inland waters, not in the wider territorial waters, or what they call the deep sea.
All right, Dr. Peterside, let's do a critical analysis of how you have fared in the last 3 years, because I know going by some of the issues you've itemized and what you mentioned, NIMASA was bogged down with challenges in those areas. What have you done differently to change this story?
Well, thank you very much. If I just lay out the basics, I'm sure it will help you appreciate. If you look at our mandate in safety, ensuring safety. For those who are very conversant with the industry, there are usually 7 key indicators of whether one's maritime space is safe or not. Now, one of the 7 indicators is what they call the port state control. That means vessels coming from outside the country calling at our ports. We have increased the number of inspection of these vessels that we do by close to 35%. That's one indicator. So that's up. And I'll tell you another thing. We have also brought down the number of vessels that are detained, number of vessels, ships calling at our ports that are detained because they did not meet up one of the conditions or the other. That we have brought down. Whereas the number of inspections have gone up, the number of detentions have gone down. Means more vessels calling at our ports are more compliant because they know that Nigeria is no longer tolerant. Nigeria is not tolerant of substandard vessels calling at our ports. So we don't compromise our environment. We don't compromise the safety of those who operate within our territories. That's one. Now, another indicator. So we've done 2. Indicator number 1, number of inspections of port state control are up. Number of ships detained are down. Now, in terms of state inspection, meaning vessels that are flagged Nigeria, vessels registered in Nigeria, vessels operated by Nigerians, we also increased the number of inspections. We now go more on board these vessels to ensure compliance. We have also brought down the number of vessels detained under the flag state control. That's another 4th indicator. Now, the other indicator is the number of incidences, safety incidences, accidents, and all that. We have also brought down significantly because of our interventions and the fact that we're up and doing to ensure compliance. That's the 5th indicator. Now, the 6th indicator is that aside from bringing down incidences, the other one may not appear positive. It's a challenge. The issue of piracy cases or crime cases on the sea. That is up. That is not good enough. That's one area we need to step up our game. So if we look at all the indicators, from industry perspective, all of them are positive. And this
what about the issue of indigenous shipping?
We'll come to that. So if you look at the issue of safety, on all fronts is positive. And that's apart from the one of piracy and crime, and we're dealing with that, and we're going to talk about that extensively. Now, if you look at the issue of promotion of Nigerians, promotion of participation of Nigerians in shipping, if you look at it, it's also positive. Under the Cabotage Act, it is our mandate to ensure that Nigerians acquire vessels and take the dominant role in our local trading. Before 2015, we had 262 vessels registered on the cabotage regime. Now, that has increased to about 420, 430. That's up, almost double in 3 years. Despite the fact that the economy was literally stagnated at the time and growth has been slow. Growth of the economy is between 1.6% and 1.9%. However, growth of acquisition of vessels is almost 100%. That could only be a miracle. That means there's something somebody is getting right somewhere.
What are you getting right?
We'll talk about that.
No, it's good. Say it now. We're pressed for time. Fire.
Now, what we're getting right is the fact that we have stepped up our compliance enforcement. What that means is that before now, foreign vessels can just come in and leave. Now they can no longer come in and leave, so they are forced to patronize Nigerians, to get Nigerians. So Nigerians are better patronized now than some years ago. We introduced what is called the new cabotage compliance strategy. We've always had compliance enforcement, but we have now rejigged our compliance enforcement. We are working collaboratively with Nigerian Content Development Board, now making some forecast of what will be needed in the industry in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years, and say to industry players, this is what will be needed, the kind of vessels that will be needed in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years, so prepare for it. We signpost to the oil industry, we will not accept any foreign vessel trading within our coastal water, save in cases where no Nigerian has that vessel. So we put the oil and gas companies on the no. We put industry stakeholders on the no. And we actually go all out doing physical enforcement. So if we see a foreign vessel, then you are up for trouble.
Why is it that some of the industry stakeholders continue to complain about the Cabotage Act?
You see, people complain because of lack of information, and we keep giving this information. I understand that there is complaint, actually. When the vessel of a particular person is not patronized at the time, then you've not done anything right. It's not possible to engage all 462 or 400 something vessels at the time. The industry might just have need for 300 vessels. Mind you, most cabotage vessels service oil and gas industry. Recall that in the past 1 year, the price of crude oil dipped to about $30 per barrel. That significantly affected investment in the industry and activities in the industry. Things were down. We don't have control over that. We don't have control over the price of crude oil, which is nationally determined. It's not our problem. It's that even in the activities going on in the industry, let Nigerians be patronized. Now, if you talk about money, there are specialized skills that will take 5 to 10 years to acquire for you to go on board and operate in those specialized vessels. Our work is to ensure that we get Nigerians trained, and we're working hard on that. But for Nigerians who are trained, have appropriate qualifications at certain manning level, we will not tolerate foreigners being on board. We've since taken up or scaled up our enforcement to ensure that no foreigner that has a certificate Nigerians have can operate within our coastal waters.
Yeah, because the money issue, again, it's been in the news. You know, stakeholders have been complaining that some qualified Nigerians do not get jobs, as seafarers. But unfortunately, foreigners are the ones who continue to take this job. Is there some miscommunication between your agency and these complainants who are also stakeholders?
Yes, I've said we have continuously put out the statistics and asked that for the challenge of the statistics. Today, we have not less than 70% of Nigerians on board cabotage vessels. Are there alternative statistics? You can't have alternative facts. You can have a different opinion, but you can't have alternative facts. Is that not the truth? Let anybody challenge us with alternative statistics. Facts are sacred. And we have said there are a minimum of 70. Now, if you look at the other 30%, there are cases where we have specialized vessels that you need specialized training to go on board. We're not going to risk people's assets because we must put Nigerians on board. These assets are usually very expensive, as you know. It costs between $50 and $100 million to acquire very specialized vessels working in the industry. And so you spend $50 million and you bring one chap who is not trained to man the vessel, to be captain, risk the asset itself, the vessel, risk the environment, risk human lives, and of course, risk projects.
How's your relationship with the Navy?
Well, we have a working relationship. We had an MOU signed with the Nigerian Navy sometime in 2007. After 10 years in 2017, we renewed the MOU. That MOU deals with 3-4 dimensional issues. One is the fact that the Navy supports us in enforcement under the Maritime Guard Command arrangements, where we have some men work with us in the master on the routine posting, and they don't understand safety issues. They don't understand merchant shipping issues. We bring that element. They bring enforcement, the power of the arms. Now, aside from that, we collaborate on a number of issues. The maritime industry. We collaborate on a number of issues. So we have a good working relationship with the Nigerian Navy.
All right. Earlier you talked about the fact that piracy remained a challenge.
It is.
Why has it remained a lingering challenge? And could you link that up, for instance, with certain reports that you have all kinds of fishing trawlers that are poaching on our waters virtually unchallenged?
Well, there are two issues that are not related. Okay. One is the issue of piracy, which I said is a challenge, and I must admit it's a challenge, big one at that. The second one is illegal, unregulated and unreported fishing. There are two different things. Now let's talk about the issue of piracy. The nature of our creek and waters makes it slightly difficult to fight piracy in this part of the world with conventional methods and strategies. We have a labyrinth of creeks, and so you could, fast intervention boats, you could just slip into those creeks in and out without being noticed, because naval vessels are usually big vessels that cannot go into some part of the creek. Some part of the creeks. Now, aside from that, now the massiveness of the creeks and the meandering nature of the creeks is a challenge of its own. Mind you, we've also had social issues in the Niger Delta region of the country. Even in the deep sea, as is also peculiar in many ways. Then the fact that pollution has put a lot of persons out of job in the Niger Delta has raised an army of young men that are willing tools to be used by these pirates because they are not busy. The combination of these factors have made the piracy industry thriving. But we are not resting on our oars. We sat back and strategized and designed what we call the total spectrum maritime security strategy. And this is four-pronged. The first one is to invest substantially on intelligence, to have a clearer picture of what's going on at every time, monitor what's going on in our environment. And we're working closely with the Navy. We have our own satellite surveillance system. The Navy has our own park on eye system. The NPA has a satellite system, and all of these are closely integrated. So we have done a lot of work on in the area of intelligence. The other area we have also worked on is in the issue of response capability. Now, if we try to prevent an event that occurs, we should be able to have assets or vessels actually to respond, to confront these pirates. Then the third thing is to put the legal framework in place. So we're pushing for early passage of the anti-piracy bill. Before now, many persons can commit crime and get away. But we need to domesticate the important or critical provisions of what we call the safety of life at sea, SOLAS, and suppression of unlawful acts on the sea, the SOLAS conventions. So that have pushed far. We've gotten it approved by the Federal Executive Council. It's been forwarded to the National Assembly. We hope that any moment from now it will be passed and it will become law so that we can prosecute pirates or those who are involved in maritime crime. Then the fourth element is working with our regional partners, be they the Congolese, be they the Noise, the Ghanaians, and those are our partners in Central and West Africa. You know, we're doing a lot because very often we notice that crime at sea do not just begin and end in one territory. They're very often multi-territorial. So those are some of the things we're putting in place. But we admit that it's a problem. The Navy has also started a number of special operations designed specifically to tackle the issue of piracy. Then there's the issue of relationship between piracy and illegal refining and bunkering going on in the Niger Delta region of the country. You can see that the attack is frontal. The second element is the illegal, unreported and regulated fishing. It's very true that from time to time, Asians, find their way within our territorial waters, fish and go away. But we're bringing that down. The reason is that with the satellite surveillance system now, we have a best eye view of our entire territorial waters. And so whether you're shipping offshore, we're shipping within another, fishing rather offshore within another, we'll see you on our satellite system and alert appropriate persons to go after you and find out if you have the proper authorization from the Fisheries Department of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture or not. Ours is to ensure safety and ensure that your vessels meet up to the minimum standards set by our country. But it is the Federal Ministry of Agriculture under the Fisheries Department, or rather, the Fisheries Department under the Ministry of Agriculture, that gives you a license to fish or not within our coastal waters. But we're working collaboratively to tackle it. It's an issue that is in the front burner. I think we're tackling it. We're making progress too.
All right. On that note, we'd like to thank Dr. Dakuku Peterside. He is Director General of NIMASA, that's the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Thank you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you too.